Zoom traffic jam, guys. Sorry. Here we go. Oh, there's somebody named iPhone here. It's an interesting name. What's up, iPhone? Is that Mackenzie? I gotcha. I'll make sure I catch you here. All right, let's get going here because I want to leave an ample amount of time to talk through an actual story that we read. A lot going on. Not a whole lot happens, but a whole lot's going on. All right, had vocab lesson 2, creative usage 2 last night. It's been checked. Hopefully share a couple of those in a sec. Grammar lesson 9, I believe, due tomorrow night. AP Classroom Unit 1, questions 1 through 4. Should be an equal sign, 1 through 4. We're due on everyday use. We will talk through those, maybe extend a little bit. I set up a Jamboard to maybe practice making a thesis for tonight. I'm gonna edit that to take the caps out because yesterday I was frustrated for no good reason. I thought you guys didn't watch the video, but you did. So watch the 2A video number 1. There's only one of them for this one, for the function of setting, and take notes to turn in. Some of you guys have already started to do that, and I didn't put it on the agenda here because I just thought of it, but I did assign the next short story which you have tonight and tomorrow night to read, called Hunters in the Snow by Tobias Wolff, and that'll concentrate on setting. So the general pattern is you're watching these videos and you kind of practice, right? And then you kind of take a closer look at a full story to kind of strengthen that. And then we'll stop every couple of skills and we'll do these topic questions that are like these practice quizzes. They're not correctness grades, but you'll get immediate feedback in AP Classroom and find out which ones you didn't answer correctly. And even has like built-in explanations. Pretty nice. At the end of the unit, we'll have an actual test that we'll take all together. Okay. So vocab words, and we have a test, quote unquote, on these this Friday, just to pronounce them for you so you don't feel self-conscious. Metamorphosis, Donnybrook, nonchalant, vestige, interlocutor, procrustean, Stygian, sophistry, carte blanche, incantation, cosmopolitan, rife, nomenclature, brigand, and contemptuous. Can I get a couple people to read what you wrote? I will be generous with my plussing. Do I see a hand? I like hearing your voices. I really do. Oh, gotta let Maui in. Pretty good attendance in this class. Everybody comes. No sharing. Nobody's gonna share. You guys are gonna make this into a thing. Make complex about it. I'm never gonna hear one. No fun. Boo. No fun. Nope. Jeering you doesn't work either. At least I got a couple laughs, even though I can't hear them. Oh, Taylor, my God, thank you so much.
Let me find it.
Just save the year. That's what it is. You guys, you don't want to dig through a couple screens to get to it. I understand now. It is kind of tricky, but I think it's good to practice doing that. Just be on Zoom, but still be able to kind of switch around and find stuff and look at it. We're definitely going to need to do that in a minute here. So if you're not going to read your creative usage, you might as well dig up your everyday use questions so we don't sit here and stare at each other. But go ahead, Taylor. Thank you. You're going to read yours, right? And you are still muted right now. So.
Yeah. So I apologize for the inevitable butchering of the
Mispronunciation?
pronunciation, but
That's okay.
all right. So let's see. Welcome to the Secret Brigands of Kingston City, the SBKC, or Secret Carte Blanche of the city. We run this place more than the government. We don't just create your average Donnybrook. We have specific missions in place to take care of things that we deem unfair. You will either be behind the scenes agent or one of our interlocutors. You work behind the scenes, or if you work behind the scenes, you will focus on research, learning our nomenclature and weapons development. If you become a field agent, you will have to become skilled in the art of sophistry while seeming nonchalant and looking like the average cosmopolitan. You will complete all assignments without vestige. Kingston City has become a Procrustean, and it's our job to correct it.
Great job. So random and creative. I love it. Don't feel self-conscious about that, guys. The sillier, the better. Not that that was overly silly, but it was like, you know, totally out of the blue about Kingston for some reason and brigands there. Look at a couple words, just kind of go with something. Great job. Anybody else before we move on? Okay, probably better. So looking back here. All right, talk about the grammar. Okay, so let's talk about everyday use. I'll go back to my grid here. You guys, please get your questions up on the screen and please get this out. It's a real physical book. Remember that we read the story and it would be good if we looked back and looked at the questions that we were answering as well. I know it's looking at a lot of different things, but again, we gotta get good at this or we're never gonna have any good discussions and we're not gonna have a good AP English class if we can't have good discussions. We gotta be able to do it. Okay, so kind of a strange story, right? And not a whole lot happens, and it's definitely a great example of, we talked about literary fiction that is not meant to just, you know, yay, entertain and predictable ending and stuff. It leaves off on a pretty ambiguous gray note, doesn't it? And you're not thinking that one person was necessarily in the right or not. It's just a difficult situation. It feels real. It represents some issues of a certain, you know, kind of time and place to some degree, and certainly cultures and religions and race and all kinds of stuff is going on there. And the kind of seeming randomness of it is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost kind of intensified by the point of view in the narration, which we're not even really talking about yet, but it's got some interesting point of view and narration going on here with the way that the speaker, you know, whose mother is kind of popping back and forth in time, like inside her head, or as if we're sitting in front of her, and she's telling us the story. But like I often do, she goes on tangents, right, and then goes back in time and comes back, and it's a little bit tricky to keep track of. You know, maybe when you're reading those first couple pages, you kind of back up a little bit and say, okay, now I see what's going on here. But otherwise, you might get a little lost, right? There's even some gaps where it kind of indicates, well, time has passed or it's coming back into the present. So the first question said, characterize the speaker and evaluate her reliability as a reporter and interpreter of events. Okay, so we are getting into characterization there, but characterization with the speaker obviously also involves point of view, right? So the way that she's part of the way that she's characterized is through this, we can certainly tell it's first person point of view, right? Where does she refrain from making judgments, as in hold back from making judgments, but you could tell that she's talking about something where she could make a judgment and she probably does have a strong opinion. Where does she present less than the full truth? These examples of reticence, like her reticence being like her unwillingness, undercut her reliability. So thoughts about that first one, any or all? What do you think? We can just start with the specifics of what does she kind of not talk about that she certainly could talk about. We might wish that she talked about more because that would fill us in a little bit more on what the history of these characters is. Come on now. I saw all kinds of wonderful answers when I was looking over these this morning. Plenty of people did a good job. Is she a totally reliable narrator? Does she tell us everything?
No.
Certainly not. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, Ashley, or anybody else, what is one specific example of something that she doesn't explain fully, but it sounds like something horrible went on, maybe even more horrible than she lets on, that we might infer?
The house burning down?
Yes, exactly. Who's talking there? Is that Chris? Okay, I can't tell because of the mask sometimes. Yeah, what about that house burning down? Chris, what's kind of mysterious about that?
she doesn't say how it started or really anything about it. She just said that it happened.
Certainly doesn't. All we know is their house burned down. Maggie was burned really badly. And what was Dee doing? Where was she? What did her attitude seem to be about the fire?
She was happy that it burned down. She didn't like the house anyway.
She didn't like it anyway, and she's almost like a little bit too nonchalant and happy about it as she stands over there. What is it? We'd like to think not if we think of these as real people, but what does it maybe almost kind of imply or suggest that might have happened, like if we really thought of like the worst possible case scenario as far as the origin of this fire? Somebody say it.
She might have just said it herself.
Yeah, did Dee burn the house down? Yeah. It certainly never says that, but the mom, you can tell that she holds back on talking about the stuff that is most horrible, and maybe she's in a little bit of psychological denial about what her own child might have done, especially with regard to what it did to her other child, right? Who was already kind of vulnerable. I mean, that's horrible stuff, right? But we don't know that happened. And that is definitely an example of ambiguity, right? And that gives us, the idea of what we call an unreliable narrator. She's not necessarily going to tell us everything. And people in real life don't necessarily tell us everything, depending on who's talking to who. Okay, so that's kind of some of the things going on there. Doesn't present the full truth, doesn't explain the whole thing. All right, we may not be able to get through describe as fully as possible the lives of the mother, Dee, and Maggie prior to the events of the story. However, the following incidents from the past also reflect in the past actions. We got Dee's hatred of the old house. So we kind of talked about how that might connect to the fire. She was at least happy about it, right? But then what do you think we mean by Dee's ability to stare down any disaster? What does that kind of tell us about Dee before we even meet her, that she is like? Characterization, right? Before we even meet her, she's characterized by the mother with phrases like that, which doesn't say it directly, but what does it imply about Dee's character before we even meet her? We can at least say she's what? Infer that she is what? Psychologically. Taylor, go ahead.
Determined.
Yeah, determined, confident, headstrong, something like that. And then she gets there, and boy, is she, right? And she's one of those people that not only is she that way, but it's like a chicken or the egg thing. She's attractive in the way that she carries herself. She's got a strong voice, and she wants to progress, right, and evolve above what she came from. Now, in theory, that's okay, right? We want people to think like that, right? But then you also might question some of the ways that she does it as possibly being a little bit, at best, impatient, and at worst, kind of condescending toward the rest of her family. You can't necessarily keep up with the way that she progresses because they're just at home there working and they don't have the ability to rise above as much as she is, because we also kind of sympathize with the mother in the position that she's in. She's just trying to work and get by. She obviously works really hard. She obviously cares about both of her daughters, but she takes care of Maggie, who has more, needs more taken care of, especially with what happened to her with that fire. She seems like she's emotionally, maybe is physically damaged. So there's no like clear winner or loser in this whole situation, right? Maggie's burns from the fire just kind of indicate how she might be damaged in general. The mother having been hooked in the side while milking a cow almost kind of feels like another metaphorical example of how she's just been beaten down, right? Just suffered a lot of like heartache, both physical and mental, all through life, but she just kind of keeps going, right? Even though the physical faults that she admits, that she can't get around very well, she's overweight, not very healthy, but at the same time, you kind of want to root for her, right? You can tell by the way that she talks that she's trying to do the right thing, and then she has this stand, and then we have to think to ourselves, well, what do we think of that stand that she takes? And we'll get to that. Dee's refusal to accept a quilt when she went away to college. Yeah, why does she refuse to take it then? Now she wants to come back and take it now, and she wants the most rough-hewn one. What do we think about her motivations to not want it then, and then why does she want it now? There's kind of a more complex question. Any thoughts on that? What do you think of Dee? You tell me.
Well, I mean, she doesn't want it at first. She's like, oh, it's too old. And then, like, it says directly in the story, like, she said that it was too old. But then she comes back and she wants the ones that are, like, handmade because of the heritage behind it. Mm-hmm. I think just this
why do you go like this?
Because, like, That's, I don't know, it's directly from the story. That's exactly how she put it.
Okay, gotcha. No, I thought you meant, I thought you might have been putting that like sarcastically, like it's not a genuine desire for heritage.
Well, I mean, can be that too.
Yeah, yeah, because I would agree with that, because I think Dee has kind of, I mean, she's African American herself too, but are you familiar with the term carpetbagger? Yeah. It's like someone coming down and trying to help, but when you call someone that, you're calling them that in a condescending kind of way, right? So they almost might see her like as a carpetbagger, like within the family, right? She wants the novelty of their heritage to hang on the wall, like a museum piece or something, right? Like, yeah, I came from this, but I'm not part of it anymore. And she wants it to look like, I appreciate this or whatever, but really it just comes off as, it just doesn't come off quite right, does it? It's kind of condescending. And the reason she wants the most rough-hewn one is because that's the one, it's not going to last a long time. It's a display piece to her, right? And that's where the title of the story comes from. The title of the story is this. You explain to me, why is the title? What is the tone of the title of the story? We'll put it that way, because that really gets to the root of it. What is the tone of the title of the story? Why is it called Everyday Use? Because Dee says that if Maggie kept the quilt, what would she do with it? She'd probably be backward enough to what?
Use it every day.
Yeah, to have it for everyday use, right? And that captures the whole crux of the story, right? There's nothing wrong with having something for everyday use. And to take something that is for everyday use, I mean, that is the reason that it was made, even if it was made through old garments of various family members. It's kind of a condescending way to put it, right? Let me get back to the questions here. So, let's see. Okay, so the whole identity, like say, current social movements, innovations, some other response to, what do they have in common? Dee's new name and costume, right, which is Wangaro something or another, and then Hakeem's name is behavior and attitudes, the beef cattle peoples down the road. That was probably kind of confusing, Dee's concern for her heritage. Do we understand what kind of, what types of people the quote unquote beef cattle peoples down the road are, and what Dee and Hakeem are? That would be something that people of her time of African American heritage would be, I won't say chasing after, but identities that they might be adopting with pride, and that might be a good thing, but that others might not understand. What is it? What have they become? Can we tell by the names in the history and what would have been going on in mid-20th century with a lot of African Americans? The religion. What religion are they obviously adopting?
Muslim.
Yes, they've become Muslim, right? They're of an Islamic culture at this point, and so they take great pride in that, right? And are we going to denigrate them for that per se? Well, of course not, right? Because the whole motivation for that would have been to get away from the life that slaves would have been forced into, because originally they would have kind of been herded into Christianity, right? Because that wouldn't have been where their roots came from. And so the desire to, go back to, or to adopt and become part of Islam, right, would feel like, getting back closer to African and North African roots, right, Middle Eastern roots. So is there anything wrong with that? Well, no. But again, it's all about their attitudes about it, right? And they're looking back at these family members, and they're impatient with their ability to quote unquote not evolve, right? No one's right, no one's wrong. There's a lot of ambiguity. You might kind of lean more toward one than the other, but the speaker doesn't know how to respond to that, does she? And Maggie's got nothing to say about that. They're just trying to live, right? Just like the whole thing with where their names come from, right? And Dee wants to insist that their names have been passed on through generations. Yeah, maybe, right? But they're still more kind of European names, right? That at some point probably were forced on them. But can the mother be expected, just because she says that right now, to not only accept theirs, but then just change their names out of the blue? There's no easy way to correct, generations of what's happened in that situation there, right? All right, number 4 was, does the mother's refusal to let Dee have the quilts indicate a permanent or temporary change in her character? Why she never done anything like it before? Why she do it now? What do we think of her whole? She stands up to her, doesn't she? She's like, nope, damn it, you're not taking this. This is staying here with Maggie. What do you guys think when that happened? I don't think there's one correct answer, so don't be shy. What's your impression? Has she turned some kind of corner here?
I think that I guess the word I'd say would be proud, because she, like, I feel like throughout the whole thing, she was kind of foreshadowing or hinting at it. Like, I was like, just do it already. Like, just tell her off, because, like, she could tell that, like, she's not very genuine about actually wanting to keep the quilt for, like, the actual use that the mother kind of wants it to be used for, not to just display it. But, like, when she comes, well, first off, she turned it down. So then when she came back, it's like, you first turned it down anyway. So it's like, why are you coming back for it now?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a sympathetic moment in the story where we're like, all right, Mom, that's good. You stood up to her, right? It's almost like Dee would be putting her actual, it is really like she's putting her family members on display, because it's made out of garments, from them. But then with all of her, she would say, more sophisticated, evolved friends, she'd be like, look at this, look where I came from. They're still back there. They live so backwardly, but I love them, and I remember them by this. It's like, I don't know if we're buying that or not. But at the same time, if you look to number 6, which we didn't do, is Dee wholly, WHOLLY, unsympathetic? Is the mother's victory over here altogether positive? What emotional ambivalence is there in the final scene between Maggie and her mother in the backyard? So main question there being, is Dee a horrible person? Let's defend Dee. Who can defend Dee? Even though we kind of rooted for the mom to do what she did.
I think her heart's in the right place. It
How's that?
just came off. Like, if you're trying to connect with your heritage, you don't know much about it, and you don't know where to start. But getting a bit of it would feel like you're starting somewhere.
Yeah, and there is a such thing as having good intentions, but still coming off as arrogant. And I think that's kind of what's going on with Dee here, right? She has, we don't know that she's done nothing to get where she is. We don't know that she's just gotten by on her looks. I mean, she is confident. She obviously sounds intelligent, right? And she is trying to evolve in what she sees as a genuine way, and she might really be trying to recapture her heritage. It comes across a little wrong, right? But she might not mean to do that. Okay, so all that adds up to what we'd say is certain. Think about all those different tenets of the difference between commercial and literary fiction. And this is certainly literary fiction. It's not something that you read and it's just feel good. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's ambiguous. It has all kinds of gray areas and gray characters, right? Most importantly, because we're talking about characters here. If you could, has anybody tested and tried to go into that Jamboard that I did? I put a comment on there, and there's something tricky about the settings to allow you guys to get in there. But let me kind of screen share over to it. And just to kind of practice starting to get used to putting a thesis together for what will eventually be writing a full paragraph and then writing full essays. This is kind of a generic form of the type of thesis that you would see, the type of prompt that you would see to get you to write about a story like this. Analyze how Walker utilizes various, let's see people join, that's good, various literary techniques to create a complex relationship between the speaker and Dee. I'd like you guys, I'm going to make this optional, but I'll count it for participation. If some people can try to pop a sentence in there that uses the name of the story and the author's name and responds to that, thinking about the complexity of relationships that we discussed just now, that would be great. And I'll have the other class contribute too, and we can kind of look at what some of you guys came out with tomorrow. So be brave, put it up there. I don't think we can even tell who posted something, okay? And we're not going to be able to sit here and look what people put, because we're going to run out of time. And I want to at least have a couple minutes before I start letting people into my next one, okay? So if some people could try that, I'll make it worth your while. Otherwise, I've gone over everything on the agenda. I think we are good to go. You have any questions about anything? Yes, Chris?
I think it's on view only right now, so we can't.
You think what?
Put anything into it.
It's on view only? Okay, so you got in, but you couldn't post?
Yeah.
Okay, I will try to change those settings. Hopefully we'll get some. No big deal if we don't. We just talk about it tomorrow. But if you want to look again, I'll try to get that changed. All right. Anything else, guys? All right. I need to start letting the third bell in. Happy Tuesday. See you tomorrow.